Here we go. Hi, everybody. It's Dan Cerrucci again, and I'm here with New Jersey State Senator Joe Pennacchio. We've had several conversations in the course of this momentous and record-breaking year in many ways since we've been locked down since I guess it is March. How are you, Senator?
I'm doing great, Dan. How you doing?
I'm doing as best I can because everybody's worried now that we're going to go into another upsurge in New Jersey, or we've got another upsurge already underway. And, I've been out at the stores, Governor, maybe you should be Governor, Senator, and people are buying everything off the shelves. I mean, you're only allowed a certain amount of toilet paper, a certain amount of paper towels. You can't get any sanitary wipes. They're buying stuff like crazy for Thanksgiving. And there's a lot of concern about, is the governor's on my mind, is he about to announce some new restrictions? What do you know?
Well, let's take the toilet paper issue first. President Trump had gotten lambasted because he tried to downplay, not to, frighten the general populace as far as COVID was concerned. And meanwhile, there was a run on toilet paper, for crying out loud. So you can understand why he did it. Okay, and then you take a look at New Jersey, and you take a look at since February, March. No other state has had as severe, as draconian measures as New Jersey has had, emulating, of course, New York, but probably the bigger pictures are trying to emulate Europe. And how's that working out? There was no doubt we were going to get, quote, a second wave, especially when you saw everything that Europe did, which is what New Jersey wants to do, and they're experiencing the second wave. So you can't hide from this, Dan. People can lock themselves up in a house, they can lock themselves and cement themselves in a cave. But once they go out, that virus is not going away. So you got two options. You could treat or you can retreat.
And you put out a statement in the past week that we seem to be about to make are making the same mistake again with nursing homes that we made in way back in the beginning. How could this be?
Well, the statement I put out was a reaction to a news story. And the news story basically said there are spikes in nursing homes, which is basically 50% of what the total spikes are. Well, golly gee, that's exactly a mirror of what happened during the first run, during the spring and early summer. The problem that I have is that the legislature has abdicated its responsibility. We were promised by leadership a Senate Select Committee, and hopefully we would have gotten it with subpoena power. That way we could have sat down together with the administration, figured out exactly what worked, what didn't work, what we should avoid, and what we should be doing proactively. We never did that. So now whatever happens, it's not just the governor through his edict that owns it, but it is the legislature, in particular the Democrats in the legislature, because they en masse stopped anything that we tried to do, Dan. So now they own this as much as the governor.
Well, one of the things you've been calling for is, I guess it would be a select legislative committee that would investigate this whole situation. Is that right?
Well, there's over 7,200 dead souls just in nursing homes alone. And the state of New Jersey has oversight over those nursing homes. Why we haven't had it to date screams for an answer. If nothing else, you can hear those silent screams from all those dead souls as well as their loved ones. They want to know what happened. Why did we force that virus into that nursing home, lock the doors? Nobody could visit. Why are we opening up prisons, letting prisoners out? Because they knew when you interject that virus in a closed, confined spot like a prison or a nursing home, the consequences could be dire. And that's exactly what happened. So we have to vet that out. We have to find out exactly what happened. And to date, the Democrat legislature has abdicated its responsibility.
You're satisfied that you and your fellow Republican colleagues would support something like this in a minute?
They have. We on, I think, 3 separate occasions have tried to make that the bill of the day. Let's vote on it, guys. Let's do it right now. We'll work bipartisan fashion. Okay, well, if we have to, we'll get subpoena powers for it. And on 3 separate occasions, it was voted down on a bipartisan fashion. Democrats voted no, they didn't want to do it. Republicans said yes. So one can only surmise. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out exactly where you stand on that issue, Dan.
And so their position is what? We have to get through this and get through the pandemic and wait till it's over before we have any kind of discovery of what happened or what? I mean, I don't understand this.
That's a specious argument, especially when you take a look and you see that you haven't, quote, a second wave. A lot of what's happening now is parroting what happened during the first wave. And I mean, what are we getting paid for? If you can't investigate why 7,000 dead souls died while the state was overseeing their death, then nothing that we do in Trenton deserves us being there, Dan.
There's money that came from the federal government. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is there money that came from the federal government that the state is holding that for COVID relief or whatever that the state is holding that has not allocated yet?
There's money, correct.
And so why isn't it being spent?
That's a great reason. The Senate Select Committee would not just investigate nursing homes and the disaster that happened in them, but also invest questions just like that. Why did the governor pick winners and losers? What deemed the business to be essential versus not essential? Why is the governor using a particular law? I think the disaster relief law or whatever, 1947, something like that, Dan. He cites that law when he has his executive orders, but the law in totality says it does give the governor the right to shutter those businesses for the betterment of the entire community. But the law also says you have to compensate those people when you do something like that. It's a taking. Without compensation, that law is unconstitutional. You can't ask one group of people in order to satisfy the safety of the betterment of the community just to shoulder, to have the entire process on their shoulders. Just not fair. So the questions that we ask that haven't been answered are almost endless.
Senator, I want to get your take on the to move on to another topic on the election, the national election. You were co-chair of the Trump campaign in New Jersey, and also statewide elections and, well, the legislative elections and the elections that were held in New Jersey. Trump actually did pretty good in New Jersey. I mean, I don't know that any experts expected him to, or anyone expected him to win New Jersey, but he did better this time than he did last time. Is that right?
Sure. Last time he got 1.3 million votes. This time, I believe, he got 1.8 million votes. So what's the difference between Trump is Trump? He was Trump back in 2016, but during the course of those 4 years, the message resonated with people. That populist message of putting America's interests first, of saving our jobs here instead of exporting them to China. All that stuff was very powerful, and especially a lot of my tradespeople, a lot of blue-collar Democrats, they heard that message as unaffiliated, and they liked that message. They liked the fact that he wants to end those endless wars. He had multiple opportunities to start new ones, and he didn't. So for me, taking his personality aside, and granted he's not a conventional president, what always worked for me, Dan, was the message.
The message and the policies and the accomplishments. He did better among Hispanics. I believe he increased his margins in many strategic places among Asian Americans. He did better among Black Americans, African Americans. And of course, he's always had a strong appeal to high school educated voters, groups that the Republicans and working class, that the Republicans were not known to appeal to. What can we learn from this?
Well, just take a look at Romney. He got twice as many African-American votes, if not more, than Mitt Romney had gotten when he ran for president. Mitt
Mhm.
Romney comes from the Rhino School of Republicanism. Okay, everybody agrees that he's a gentleman. Some of us may disagree with that, but the point is that that type of Republican doesn't play well with minorities. So what was it that was different with Donald Trump than Romney? And again, I have to go back to the message, that populist message of making sure that if you want a job, you can have one, making sure that your per capita income rises, which you did by what, $6,000 over a short period of 4 years, making sure unemployment is at historical lows for all groups. That resonated. Okay, that quite frankly is something that Mitt Romney and his Republican predecessors, along with Democrat predecessors, as a matter of fact, were not able to do, Dan.
I remember something that President Trump said during one of the debates when they were talking. They were asking him about unity and bringing the country together. And he seemed to be, it was this kind of question that pitted one group against another. And the way that liberals think, in the tribal manner in which liberals think of appealing to um, uh, people as groups of people rather than individually across the board. And the president said, look, success will bring us together. And to me, it was very clear, he being a businessman, that he meant economic success. Economic success will bring us together, because if we all do well, then we'll feel closer together. And I think that's a big part of the populist message.
Well, again, you can attract voters a number of ways. One way is with the message, the populist messages, which is just what you mentioned. Another way is by balkanizing the vote and doing identity politics, finding something that triggers off one particular group, and you play that particular group, against another. To me, that's un-American. I don't believe in that type of politicking. And that message, especially the economic message that the Trump administration laid out, wasn't for any one particular group, but that rising tide did lift all ships. And by the way, that was not Ronald Reagan that started that. He may have used it, but that message was initially done and said by who? By John F. Kennedy.
Kennedy,
So,
absolutely.
my, this is not your daddy's Democrat Party.
That's right, John F. Kennedy, absolutely. I recall that. Uh, so I have to ask you, because we have in New Jersey our fair share of what I call country club Republicans. Sometimes I think they sort of enjoy taking a good shellac and turning the other cheek, and losing in a sort of genteel and polite manner. Do you think the Republican Party will learn anything from this?
So that when they do that, they appeal to their Democrat friends, and they appeal to the left-leaning media. Okay, and they love that. The media, I get calls on this all the time. They get cited. So and so said this. So and so said this. This morning, as a matter of fact, I got off the phone with a reporter who cited 2 or 3 Republicans saying that Donald Trump should drop out. And my answer was, well, what about the 3/4 of the 72 million that think that the election, still had a lot of questions to be answered? How do we answer those people? So, and again, I mentioned Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney was supported by myself and conservatives and the entire Republican Party when he ran, and yet he hasn't he hasn't given that same type of courtesy to Donald Trump. He did when he wanted to be Secretary of State, but he didn't afterwards. So a lot of these are just basically sore losers. Okay, they want to be Democrat light. My feeling is that you have to offer the Democrats, or actually got to offer the public an alternative. I'm reminded of a story. I went to Israel, and they went for a tour, and I saw the Knesset, and they pointed out the seat where Menachem Begin first got elected back, I think, in 1948 or some date like that. And he was a party of one. And he was that lone voice crying in the wilderness. But slowly but surely, people start to listen to that message, especially when they compared it to what they had. And he managed to build coalitions and turn people around. that Republican message, if it's just a Democrat light, you will never win, because people would always rather go with the devil they know rather than the devil they don't know. So I think it's Republicans' time to have to stand up, and this nonsense with never Trumpers, I think, has got to stop, because the never Trumpers are basically, you know, spitting in the eye of the base of the party. Those pop-ups, those flotillas, those caravans, those were Trump supporters. Those were people that supported Trump because they supported the message. That's something that the press and a lot of our Rhino friends, quite frankly, never got. They never got the fact that this is a movement. This wasn't just about politics and electing, re-electing a president. This was a movement that told our friends that want to get rid of our traditional values, no, step aside, it ain't going to happen. And said, look, we believe in our founding fathers, their principles. What was good for us that brought us here the first 250 odd years, we think should continue, carry us on forward into the future. That's what the problem was with our friends left leaning, and that's what my fair weather Republican friends, they just don't get. And they look down upon the rest of us that think that way. They may not call us deplorables, but certainly they presume that they're a little bit more smarter than we are. So they attack us for thinking that way. That how could we be with a person that's a xenophobe and a misogynist and a racist like that? And in the meantime, he's a pretty lousy racist. If you look at his policy, exactly what he did for a lot of these communities and a lot of the people that he appointed, Dan.
Well, if they look down upon us and they dismiss us, they're looking down, it seems to me, upon the very army and the very foot soldiers that they're going to need to win. I want to know what is the alternative if you dismiss these people and if you ignore this movement, what's the alternative?
Dan, what you just said is it's good politics, but it's basically common sense. You don't bite the hand that feeds you. Okay, now you don't criticize Trump, and his supporters in one vein, and then ask for the support in the other vein. So this is and people pay attention. This is New Jersey. We're a pretty smart electorate, and they have a pretty long memory. So I'm not going to forgive and forget for a long time.
I have to ask you, and perhaps we'll conclude with this, that I wanted to ask you about this incident where Governor Murphy was out dining with his family. Apparently, they were outdoors or in a setting that was sort of outdoors. In other words, it was totally legit. And a woman, I imagine she's a New Jersey resident, a very irate woman, confronted them. She, I guess, captured it on video and sent a string of expletives his way, and then began arguing apparently with his son, or I don't know whether he has more than one son, maybe a couple. I saw a couple of young men there. It's quite profane. Not that, New Jersey is composed of a bunch of saints. I mean, this is Jersey, Jersey. What was your take on that? Everybody's watching the video.
I don't think it was the venue to express yourself like that, especially around his family, and especially with the words that were chosen and used against him. God knows I'm very critical of this governor, but the man is sitting down and having a meal with his family. I think there's plenty of times and plenty of places for that expression, that, hopefully minus the expletives and the least words to be had. That was not one of them there.
Yeah, when you're a public official, Senator, I'm sure you're aware, there's really no place to hide, huh? And I'm sure you have had instances like where you've been out at the supermarket and somebody comes up to you and puts a word in your ear or tries to tell you, you're a public official, you're out there, you sort of.
We've had both visual and not only the words in the ear, but also visual things following them. Listen, it is what it is. It's part of the job. I would hope that, again, there are certain places and times for people to express themselves like that, certainly at the ballot box. But while the man is sitting down and having a meal with his family, and the kids are there and the wife, it's not something that I chose to have done.
Well, the governor did not react in any way. He simply looked at the lady. She went on and on. And like I said, his son was going back and forth with her, but he himself, he just stared at her. He did not react. I dare say if it had been Governor Christie, there might have been a totally different reaction from Governor Christie. I recall one time where somebody confronted him on the boardwalk. I think it was in Seaside or somewhere. And he was with his family having an ice cream cone, and it didn't look like it was going to end well. Senator, do you remember that?
I do. And listen, the governor looking startled, I mean, it's just a natural human reaction, because there's a time and place, and that was not the time and place.
Now, what are you hearing from your constituents about all these restrictions and so forth that have been placed on them during this
We've
time?
had these measures since the beginning, the most draconian measures, whatever New York did. Obviously, a week later, we did the same thing. And some unfortunate, especially when it comes to nursing home. Why? I mean, don't you think we should question if we did everything that we were asked to do, and we were ruled, we weren't governed, and all the legislators' powers were behind him. They got whatever they wanted, one party rule, one governor rule, okay? Why are we in the position that we are right now? Why have we not questioned that? So to come back and be surprised at all that we're, quote, having a second wave, I would hope we are prepared for it, especially with the PPEs and especially with the first responders and the hospital. I would hope that the protocol is set up in nursing homes, okay, that the inspections are ready to go in nursing homes. I don't know if you recall, we didn't get inspected to the end of April because they were afraid that they may expose those inspectors to COVID. It was okay to have those 80 and 90-year-old poor souls exposed to COVID, but not allow state inspectors into those places. Why in the world are we not getting answers to those questions, Dan?
Well, Senator, I know you're going to continue to press on these issues. I hope you and your family are staying safe. It's always a great pleasure to chat with you, and we wish you a wonderful, beautiful Thanksgiving.
You, your family, and all your viewing audience as well, Dan. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Senator. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.